I spent 8 weeks in the passenger seat with a trainer named Ray who treated every rest stop like a threat assessment. This was the thing he was most serious about. Front rows, he'd say. Always the front rows. Be close to the building, close to the lights, and close to the cameras. If you park in the back, you're on your own out there. Because the back rows are where things happen that nobody reports. I thought he was being dramatic. Ray was super dramatic about everything. He'd check his mirrors 6 times before a lane change and triple lock the cab doors every night, like he was sealing a vault. I respected him, but I figured some of it was just paranoia of a guy who'd been on the road too long. I remembered his advice every night for 3 weeks. And then I pulled into a rest stop in the morning one night, and every front row spot was taken. I circled the lot twice, then a third time, hoping someone would pull out. Nobody did. The only open space was in the last row, backed up against the tree line where the lot lights didn't quite reach. The nearest truck was 3 spots away. I told myself it was just one night. I'll lock the doors, pull the curtain, and set an alarm for 5. I'll be gone before anyone even notices. I've been driving for 14 hours and my eyes were really heavy. I didn't have another stop in me. That night I couldn't sleep. The cab creaked in the wind and I kept hearing footsteps on gravel. Drivers walked to the building at all hours. Boots on pavement, doors slamming, the hiss of air brakes releasing. It's all background noise. You learn to tune it out the way you tune out the hum of the engine. But around 3 a.m., the footsteps changed. They got slower, more deliberate. It sounded like someone walking between the trucks, stopping at each one. I pulled my curtain back an inch and looked out the passenger window. A figure was moving down the road. Average height, dark jacket. His hood was up. They walked to the truck 3 spots down from me, stopped, and just stood there for maybe 30 seconds. Just standing there. Then, they reached up and tried the door handle. Slow, careful, not yanking it, just testing it, feeling whether it would give. The door held. They moved to the next truck and did exactly the same thing. Same pace, same pause, same careful hand on the handle. I should have started the engine. I should have laid on the horn. But I kept thinking about how stupid I'd feel if it was just some guy looking for his own truck in the dark. I didn't want to be that rookie who panicked his first month solo and woke up half the lot over nothing. So I just sat there. When they reached my truck, I stopped breathing. I heard boots on gravel, then silence, then the handle. It moved half an inch and caught on the lock. The figure didn't react. He didn't pull harder. He didn't knock, but he didn't move on right away. He just held the handle in that half-turned position for what felt like a full minute, like they were listening, deciding what to do. Then they let go, and I heard their boots move to the next truck down. I watched them work their way down to the end of the row and disappear into the shadow where the lot met the trees. In the morning, I walked to the fuel island to fill up, and I mentioned it to a couple of drivers standing around. One of them, an older guy fueling a Peterbilt with rust around the wheel wells, just nodded like I told him the forecast. Lot walkers, he said. Every stop's got them. They check doors all night. Most of the time they're just looking for unlocked cabs to steal from. Most of the time. I waited for him to finish the thought, but he didn't. I walked back toward my truck when I noticed the white Freightliner. The curtains were drawn, the cab was still. It was still there when I pulled out at 7. I figured the driver was just sleeping in. Some guys don't start rolling out until noon. 3 days later, I was talking to a buddy at the same company who ran dispatching. I asked him about the Freightliner. He got really quiet. Apparently, the truck had sat in that lot for 11 days before anyone flagged it. When they finally opened it up, the driver's side window had shattered inward, and there was a smear of something dark across the passenger seat. The driver's keys were on the dash. His wallet and phone were in the sleeper. His overnight bag was zipped and packed like he was ready to leave. The only thing missing was him. No body, no trail, and no witnesses. The lock cameras covered the front rows and the fuel island, but not the back. The back rows were a dead zone. I park in the front rows now. I don't care if I have to idle for an hour waiting for a spot to open. I'll sleep in a Walmart parking lot under a streetlight before I take a back row again. Ray called me last month. I told him about that night, and there was a long pause on the other end. I told you, he said. Front rows. I've been driving for 6 years, and in that time I've learned the road has its own set of rules for women. You develop a radar for it, and after a while, the radar just runs in the background like a second heartbeat. You stop noticing it's there until it goes off. The showers at most truck stops are fine. You go to the counter, you get a number, and you wait for your turn. The stalls are private. They have solid walls, a locked door, and a little changing area with a bench before you get to the actual shower. It's not glamorous, but it's 20 minutes where you can pretend like you're a normal person. I was driving just outside of Knoxville and I hadn't showered in 2 days. I walked up to the counter and the woman working there handed me a keycard without looking up. Number 14. End of the hall, last stall on the left. I almost asked for a different one. I usually prefer a middle stall because people are on both sides, there's more traffic, there's more noise. But she'd already turned away and I didn't want to be difficult. That's the social friction of being a woman in these places. You're always calculating how much space you're allowed to take up. Asking for a different shower number felt like too much space. I passed a few stalls with occupied indicators showing red. I got to 14, swiped the key card, and locked the door behind me. The changing area was clean enough. I hung my clothes on the hook, set my phone on the bench, and stepped in the shower. The water took a minute to warm up, but once it did, I just stood there with my eyes closed. It felt great. Then, the stall next to mine went quiet. I hadn't noticed when the water over there had started, but it was already running when I walked in. But I noticed when it stopped because the silence was sudden and total. There was no movement, no rustling, no towel sounds. Just the sound of my own water hitting tile. Then I heard bare skin shifting on wet tile. Not someone stepping out of the shower, someone turning in place, repositioning themselves. I opened my eyes and looked down at the gap under the partition wall. Every stall has one, about 6 inches between the bottom of the divider and the floor. I could see feet, bare feet on wet tile, and they were facing the partition wall, facing my side. I stopped moving. The water was still running and I wasn't under it anymore. I was pressed on the far wall with my hand over my mouth, staring at those feet. They didn't move. Whoever it was, they were standing right against the partition, inches from the wall, completely still. Then the feet shifted. The person started crouching down. From the floor, you can see inside the next stall. You can see everything. I grabbed my towel and wrapped it around myself. My hands were shaking hard enough that I fumbled the door lock twice before it turned. I pulled my clothes over my wet skin. I didn't dry off. I didn't even lace up my boots. I just needed to get out of there. I walked down the hallway fast. I didn't run because some part of my brain was still telling me I might be overreacting. I got to the front counter. The same woman was there. I told her what happened. I watched her face while I said it. She didn't look shocked. She didn't look confused. She looked like someone hearing a weather report she'd already seen. "I'll send someone to check," she said. "You should call the police," I told her. She gave me a look that landed somewhere between pity and exhaustion. "It happens sometimes. We'll take care of it." I stood by the front door and waited. 10 minutes later, a maintenance worker came back down the hall and told me the stall was empty. Nobody was in it. But the emergency exit at the end of the hallway had been propped open with a folded piece of cardboard. They didn't pull the camera footage. They didn't file a report. The woman at the counter had already moved on to the next customer. I sat in my truck for an hour with the doors locked in my hands in my lap, trying to stop shaking. I called my husband and I told him what happened. He wanted me to call the police. I didn't. I don't fully know why. Maybe because I knew the police would take a report and do nothing with it. But the thing that stays with me isn't the fear. It's the woman at the counter. That look on her face. She knew exactly what I was going to say before I said it. And she had her response ready like a script she'd memorized. I wasn't the first woman to come to her with that story. I probably wasn't the 10th. And somewhere, in the back of the building, there's a fire door that keeps getting propped open with the same piece of cardboard. And nobody takes it away. I've been driving long haul for 20 years by the time my marriage started falling apart. When you live in a cab that long, you're always somewhere between where you were and where you're going. And after a while, that feels normal. The loneliness doesn't bother you because it doesn't feel like loneliness. It just feels like the job. But 3 months ago, my wife told me she wanted a separation, and something shifted. The silence in the cab suddenly felt like a wall. I started keeping the CB radio on just to hear the other voices. It didn't matter what they were saying. It could be weather reports, guys arguing about politics at 2 a.m. I just needed the noise. I was hauling timber through the Blue Ridge at night in late October. The fog had come down so thick that my headlights just lit up like a white wall in front of me. The radio had been quiet for an hour, just static and dead air, and I was starting to feel that heavy, pressing silence again. Then a voice came through. "That's a real clean rig you got there, Mike." I sat up straight. I hadn't checked in on any channel. I hadn't announced my handle or my 20. Nobody on that frequency should have known my name. "Appreciate it," I said. I kept my voice steady. "Who's this?" Just a fan of the classics. That truck is a dying breed. I always loved that silver paint. Hard to keep clean on the mountain runs, but you do a nice job with it. He knew my truck, the model, the color. I told myself he'd probably see me at a fuel stop somewhere. Maybe remember the rig. Truckers notice trucks. That's not unusual. Even with that new dent on the passenger side, he added. I got in that dent 2 days earlier at a facility in Kentucky. My stomach tightened, but I kept talking. The voice was friendlier, and I was lonely enough that the warmth of it felt like something I needed. Yeah, I said. Tight dock, caught the corner. It happens. You'll buff it out. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. He asked about my route, my timeline, where I was planning to stop for the night. And I told him. I told him all of it, because he felt like a friend. That sounds insane now, but when you haven't had a real conversation with anyone in 3 weeks, you'll talk to whatever shows up. His tone suddenly changed. You should really lock your back doors, Mike. People take things in the dark. I tried to laugh. Padlock's brand new, buddy. Nobody's getting in there without a blowtorch. You sure about that? Check your mirrors. Left side. Right now. I adjusted my mirror. The fog was thick, but a patch of moonlight broke through for just a second, long enough to see the back of my trailer. The left cargo door was slightly ajar, swinging in the wind like someone had pushed it open from the inside. I hit the brakes. I grabbed my tire iron from behind the seat and jumped out. The padlock was hanging from the latch, cut clean with bolt cutters. I pulled the door open the rest of the way. The trailer was full of timber, stacked and strapped the way I'd loaded it in Kentucky. But in the back corner, there was a sleeping bag, dark green, unrolled, and when I put my hand near it, I could still feel the warmth coming off of it. Next to it was a pile of food wrappers, gas station stuff, beef jerkies, candy bars, and an empty water bottle. Someone had been living in my trailer, riding with me for the last 300 miles, maybe longer, eating, sleeping, and watching the road go by through the gap in the cargo doors. I ran back to the cab and locked the doors. I grabbed my CB mic to call for help. I sat there for a long time, trying to understand what just happened. I sold that truck 8 days later. I didn't even clean it out. I just signed the title and walked away. I drive a day cab now. There's no sleeper, but I'm home every night. My wife and I are still separated, but I don't mind the empty apartment the way I minded the empty cab. At least in the apartment, I can see every corner. At least I know when I'm alone.